If you don't read the newspaper, you're uninformed. If you do read it, you're misinformed. What is the long-term effect of too much information?
Information, I just need some information. I've been dying. Is it lack of education? I've been reading without any transformation. I'm addicted. Is it overstimulation? Hey.
Welcome to the Sixth Sense Report.
Hear ye. Come on. You are listening to the Sixth Sense Report with Joel Nikoloff and Darnell Samuels.
We back, bro. We back.
Back like MJ out of retirement.
I hope not. Man, that's like, we're coming off of our best season and finishing our careers in the dumpster.
I know. So season 4 is kicking off now. So we're back. It feels good. We prayed and God definitely had good timing with when we took our break.
Oh, sovereignty of God is a wonderful thing.
Yeah. No, it was a lot because like the last episode we recorded was at the end of February, I think. And so then COVID hits in March, and then you have Ahmaud Arbery and George Floyd and we're June, right?
Yeah.
This is June, and all these things have been happening, and I for one, I'll say this, that like I'm glad that we were on break, and that I didn't have to be jumping to speak on every issue, because a lot of this stuff, you had to kind of let stuff settle, practicing James chapter 1 verse 19, being quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger. So it gave me some time to really sit back and really reflect on what was going on. How about you?
Yeah. Oh, I totally agree, man. Like, I mean, if anyone has me on Facebook, they know I generally have contrarian views, or I like to think about the contrarian views is probably the better way of putting it. And so, for the most part, I'm sharing content on COVID that some people might not agree with, or, I'm challenging, let's say, some of the narrative. And I think your point about just essentially we were forced to be slow to speak on these issues, which not that obviously we could have just jumped back in, but I don't know about you, but I definitely could use the break. You obviously headed off to England for a little bit, so the break was anticipated.
Yeah, it was good, and I think like being able to step away from the podcast and not have to speak on everything or think about a lot of these things was helpful. So now I feel like I've been refreshed and I'm ready to start ripping at everything. So
yeah, I want to restate what you just said in another way, because I think it just resonates with me a little bit differently, that I didn't, when these issues arose, whether COVID, whether it be the Arbery or Floyd issue, I didn't have to think about what I was going to say. I just got to think about the issues. And not that I would, anyone who knows me knows those two usually are the same, in that, I don't show a public opinion in one regard and hold a private opinion in another. I'm pretty much an open book. I'll pretty much tell you, why I think what I think, in personal conversations. But for the podcast, there's times when, especially with issues as significant as what we're dealing with, where there's just a need to be so precise and so careful with the way you say things to make sure they're interpreted the right way, that there's an aspect where that sometimes takes away from the ability to think critically, because you're almost having to think critically and then move on to, how do I say this, or how do I communicate this? And so I just felt like it was a blessing that these very significant issues are things that we could take our time on. And I know for you and for me, we didn't feel there was a burden or a calling like, the next week's episode's got to be on this. If we were releasing weekly episodes and just not talking about this, it would have been a little weird, I think.
Well, as we start off season 4, we like to start for our annual survey. What our six centers actually think.
Yeah, and question one, to some extent, was a bit of a, I don't want to say nerve-wracking, but I think that was the one for us we were most unsure on what kind of answers we would get, and that was asking the audience what did they think of our Type Beast episodes. Our
well, hold on. Was season 3 was the first time we did it, right?
Yeah, exactly. So
It's Type Beast was basically us doing book reviews and explaining how the books were helpful in our thought process and doing our job as journalists.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to use some school age terminology, we were doing book reports. Just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Well, mostly you. The audience will get a blessing of I'll be doing at least one this season. Just to give them. But the point was, the question was, what did you think of the Type Beast episodes? And less than 10% of our audience said they. So we had the answers of give me more, same as the regular episodes, and get rid of them. And essentially, only less than 10% said get rid of them. Over half our audience said they consider it the same as our other content, which I think
is that a good thing?
Yeah, I think so, because what it tells me is that we're not fundamentally doing something different. We're just using a book as a launch pad for our conversation, as opposed to an article, and so I think there's a little bit more critical thinking because we're evaluating a particular author's ideas. Bringing in a little bit less, so it's a little bit more focused. But in general, we're doing the same thing. So just to finish that off, about 50% of our audience said they considered it the same, and then about 40% of our audience said give us more or give me more. So I think, what did we do? I think if I'm right, we did 4 episodes, or 5 episodes on Type Beast last season. Actually, no. Now that I look at it, 6. No, 5, 6. Yes, 6. Sorry. And I don't want to say we'll do significantly more, but I think we'll definitely be doing more. Double might be a high goal, and I think if we got to double the episodes, that would probably some of those would be in addition to our regular weekly content. So,
okay, question 2.
Yeah. So, question 2, I think isn't.
What were your top 3 episodes from season 3? Dun 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 dun.
I am almost shocked with the responses, because I don't think there's a single episode that got more than 3. There's a few episodes that got 2, a few episodes that got 1, as people ranking them in their top 3. But nothing stood out as 50% of our audience liked episode whatever. It was, I don't know, really surprising to me. I think what's kind of funny.
Sorry, because we had 36. We had 36 episodes from season 3.
Mm-hmm. Well, and technically we had 37. If you include
Thanks Coach. Oh yeah.
Which it wasn't in the survey because we kind of started the survey before we had put out the Thanks Coach episode, and it's a bit of an outlier. Not just in that it was launching your side project. Not to say that it shouldn't have been in the survey or anything, but all that to say, I think to me it gives us the perspective that we have a diverse audience who likes a diverse covering of topics. What about you? What is your initial thoughts from that from that question?
Right. Yeah. No, I was a bit surprised. I thought something would definitely rise to the top. I see the Type Beast Mamba mentality. That one got a lot of attention, but nothing that sticks out particularly. So all that shows me is just that we do a good job of creating diverse content. But I have a feeling as the years go on, it'll definitely narrow down.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting, I think maybe there's a little bit more weight towards the more recent episodes, but not a lot. So stuff like Teachers Like Us, Tipping Point, Who Wants to Be a Billionaire, like the most
recent
5 recent episodes, maybe got a little bit more love.
Yeah.
But that's where I go back to, of all the answers, it's not like we've got someone say, every 50% or even 25% of our audience is saying, oh, I love this episode. And I think the funny part is, I don't know, unless you got something else to say about the top 5, when you look at the least, so the next question was, what's your least 3, or sorry, what's your 3 least favorite episodes?
In the top 3, you also had another favorite was Biblical Social Justice 101 with Dr. Tony Costa.
Oh, yeah. So, it's all, obviously our, Black privilege, brown privilege made an appearance. The Don Cherry episode made, so
brown privilege.
It's and I said this on, in a conversation we've had already. I thought the brown privilege episode was probably one of our best that came out of nowhere almost. When Darnell introduced the topic to me, I was like, hey, what do you think about this? I was like, I don't know, man. Like, I guess, like, I don't, but then the conversation we end up having, I felt was unexpectedly good, if you want to call it. Like, just, it blew my expectations away.
And it was applicable because it raised the question. It was still on brand with what we do here at the Sixth Sense Report, which was we kept it economic, we kept it Canadian, and we kept it theological. And it addressed the issue that a lot of us have been asking that people are afraid to ask. Why are the brown people killing it?
In Canadian politics?
In general, just
true,
right? Socially and infrastructure. They're ahead of the curve than a lot of other minorities. So it was just a question that is a politically incorrect question to ask, but we don't care about that here, so we did it.
Yeah. And so, hopefully, for the audience, if you answered one of the question, or sorry, if you referenced an episode that you thought was one of your favorites and we didn't mention it, my bad. But as I said, I would say, it's not like there's any episode really that I was like, oh, nobody liked this episode and I was expecting it to be there.
Yeah. Okay.
So
3 worst.
What's funny?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. What's funny about 3 worst, we didn't call it 3 worst,
least
but we said
favorite.
what were your 3 least favorite, the politically correct way of asking that question. There's almost there's some episodes that were on people's top 3. We're in other people's bottom 3, which is almost I find peculiar. But it also kind of goes back to what I was saying, is that we have a diverse audience who have, diverse interests.
Yeah.
And I think it also goes back to the way we talk about issues. Like, we're doing something in a way that's unique. We're not afraid to tackle a controversial topic and talk about both sides of the topic, rather than give you, hey, here's what you're supposed to think, or here's the acceptable opinion. So
right.
I don't know. What else did the least 3?
The one that got majority of the dislikes was the 6th watch, Star Wars: The Rise of the Political Agendas.
Yeah.
So a lot of people didn't like that episode.
But it did show up on some people's top 3. Just to
did it?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, it did.
Well, but there was more people that hated it than liked it.
Well, and I mean, not to, I would say, if I was speculating a little bit, I think, it's one of our longer episodes, and it also, the sound quality, especially for me, my mic was, let's just say, had a little bit of trouble.
But do you think it was because of sound quality people didn't like it, or just show quality, content quality?
I would say the fact that it showed up on people's top 3 as well as the bottom 3.
No, was it top 3 on the top 3?
Yeah. It's in both. Yeah. So it blows my mind that it's on both. It's, and maybe it's just one person that's, showing love to that episode.
Wait a minute. No, it's not, Joel.
Yes, first answer. First answer.
It's in top 3?
In the top 3, the first answer, top 3.
Oh, okay.
So, and, so
what
there's
else
one person, I think, that put it in their top 3. who knows? Maybe that's one of the Afterwatch guys giving us love. But I mean, all that to say, I think I actually, one, I really enjoyed the conversation. Two, I really enjoyed the content of the conversation. And, I do know the sound quality was tough. I know, shout out to LeVar for all his hard work trying to make me sound, and so people could actually hear what I was saying. So that episode, we recorded it probably months before we released it, partially because it took so long to edit.
Yeah, but it also, I don't want to be a Debbie Downer or a negative Negro.
Negative Nancy.
Oh, yeah, that too. But it shows the people also didn't like the Joker's Wild, the collab that we did with the Six Watch as well, or that
I know,
you did with them.
but it showed up in some people's top 3 too, which is mind-boggling.
Okay, so
but it
you
was
know
the
what?
Same person.
So you know what? Let's settle this. We're gonna put out another survey at the end of with this show, and then we're gonna ask them. We're gonna ask the audience. Do you guys like these Six Watch collabs or not?
Yeah, I was gonna say we'll probably post this episode after we put this episode out there, for our audience. I think what Darnell is really getting at is like we want more info from you guys. Give us some more insight into what you like, what you don't like. So we're definitely going to be putting out that question. Do you want more collabs with the Six Watch, or
do you guys hate Phil and LeVar?
yeah. Or I mean, maybe it's just our audience doesn't want movie discussions.
Or maybe come on, man. Maybe they just don't like Phil and LeVar, man. Ain't nothing wrong with that. Like, just come on, man.
We love Phil and LeVar.
I love Phil and LeVar, but if people don't like them, then man, they're fired. That's it. Yeah, here at the Sixth Sense Report, we aim to please.
Yeah, definitely. So, all that to say that, we definitely want a little more feedback from the audience on what content we should cover more of, what shouldn't we cover. I would hope that when people say that their favorite and least favorite episodes aren't impacted totally by our opinions. I see that the Israel apartheid episode got a couple haters in terms of the three least favorite. And so, my question would be, is that because we kind of challenged a bit of the orthodoxy?
It's a controversial topic.
Yeah, it's a controversial topic. So, the question I would have is the part of the reason it showed up in some of the least favorite because the quality of the conversation or because of the content?
Also do more better type-based episode. That one popped up as well as ones that people didn't like. That was our first.
Yeah, and I mean, there was one other, somebody else tagged the Color of Compromise as one they didn't like. And so, I mean, again, those episodes got, one call out as, something that they didn't like. So, I would say that there's no reason for us to just, squash those types of episodes based on, people not liking it. So for the audience, if we're putting out an episode that is a little bit outside of your box of things that you like, don't unsubscribe. Know that we're going to continue with trying to be diverse in the types of content. And I think, that actually tailors into, our last two questions, or two of our last three questions, I should say, which one of them was, unless you got something else to say about
No.
Okay. So the last, the third last question and the last question, I'll kind of squash together because they're similar. One was name at least one improvement the show can make for next season. And the last question was just any other comments or feedback. So we'll incorporate those because I think for the most part, the other comments also were about either, giving us a bit of props or praise as well as, small kind of insights to improve.
Right. And before we jump into the commentary, I'll just preface before my remarks before we go in. Guys, I'm all about improvement. So thank you for your feedback. This is our off season. We're all about getting better. So, I'm not offended by any of the content. I just want to make the best content possible. So let's get in it.
So, I think the first comment is interesting in terms of name at least one improvement that this person essentially went for like a home run in terms of, hey, can you incorporate all of these amazing ideas, which they're great, right? So more guests, having more experts, let's say, in a particular field, controversial guests. They asked for Q&A, more Q&A, which is good to hear. We haven't done that since season 2, I think.
Maybe 1.
I think we might have done it at the end of season 1 and then into season 2. Didn't do any of those last year. So, for anyone that wants Q&A, send us more questions. sixcentsreport@gmail.com, sixcentsreport on Twitter, on Facebook. Inbox us there. We're generally pretty good at trying to get back to people relatively quickly. I know we got a few inboxes lately saying, hey, when are you going to touch on, this stuff that's all going on right now? I'm interested in your 2 cents. So, we're definitely interacting in that regard. So, more ideas, more recommendations for a guest. We're definitely open to those things. And then this one might be tough, but they also asked for live audience. I think that would be something we'd love to do. Obviously post COVID and Operation Lockdown. But not to say we wouldn't do it. It's just a matter of figuring that out logistically, and hopefully live audiences more than our spouses.
Mm-hmm. All right, the next comment.
Yeah, more guests. We got a couple comments about structure, and let's say probably telling me to cut it back on my rants a little bit, which is definitely understandable. And so those things are I'll say somewhat always on my mind, because I'm a big thinker in that, like, my mind kind of rolls on and on and on. And so there's times when I may ramble a little bit, and Darnell's got to rein me in. So I'm aware of it. Darnell's aware of it. We're trying to do our best to give you all the relevant information to be able to make a decision for yourself, or even try to present additional pieces that maybe mainstream media is not talking about, or because it's politically incorrect to talk about. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about...
Okay, so as far as how you plan to improve, like I said, I'm all about improvement. So if they're calling you out that you talk too much, how are you going to improve? Customer service.
Customer service. I think there's definitely got to be a little more intentionality to maybe even write something out a little more structured beforehand. I got a lot of things in my head, and that's something, to be honest, that I've been doing more during this break. And sometimes it's, I'll say, whether it's a Facebook conversation or a chat in our some of our common WhatsApp groups, where I'm really intentional on how I write a comment or a feedback in order to organize my thoughts so that they're concise and clear. And so I think there's got to be a little more intentionality by me in preparation of an episode to think through, is this a very I don't want to say logical, but a very thorough sort of analysis that I'm trying to do, and something that's much more thorough and complicated. I definitely need to be structuring it beforehand, in order that I can kind of clearly and concisely convey the idea.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. What about you? Is there any aspect of that sort of structure / I guess one other comment in terms of that was just improving the flow of our conversation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's good, man. The flow of our conversation, the way I interpreted that was, like, sometimes when we're talking, we talk past each other. If you're saying X, then I'm not addressing X. I'm jumping to B, where I'm I'm trying to get my shot off. You get your shots off. I try to get my shots off, and we miss each other and not working together to unpack an idea. So that's helpful. So I have to keep that in mind, or we have to keep that in mind going forward. As far as structure and definitely going forward, we'll definitely make an attempt to, create something that listeners can follow along with, and that's user friendly. That someone could just jump right in and be like, okay, I see where you guys are going, and this makes sense, and this is also helpful. So man, you know what? I really appreciate this, because I don't know if anybody's been listening to Thanks Coach podcast, but just growing up, I'm always very big on off seasons and getting better. And, this has been a good off season for me, and trying to get better and trying to put myself in kill mode. And, you're going to see a more focused Darnell Samuels coming out the gate this season. I'm trying to kill everybody. I'm trying to kill Joel. I'm trying to go at everybody. And it's not even like I'm trying to kill Joel, but the way I look at it is me and Joel are two rappers. Right? We're two rappers. No. We like EPMD. Right? Right? We're like that rap duo. And in rap, right, you're always saying, okay, well, or kind of like the Clips, right? Pusha T and Malice, where you're kind of saying, okay, well, who's the better rapper? Like who is the better rapper on this track?
Yeah.
And so for me, I always want to keep improving. And I'll be honest, sometimes, or most times, I feel like Joel's killing me on the track. That Joel had the better verse. And I'm the kind of person, I'm like, okay, well, Joel's killing me on this topic. I need to study up. I need to be better prepared. And so that's how I kind of see the approaching episodes now, where I'm like, okay, look, man, I love Joel, but yeah, he's not going to outdo me on this one. So that's where my mindset's been. So I'm definitely coming out guns a-blazing this season.
And I mean, I appreciate the praise, but at the same time, I think the audience can acknowledge we bring different things to the table. And so you're probably looking at some of my skills and the things that I bring to the table that are different than yours. And so I'd probably say the same thing in regards to, episodes where you're bringing, let's say a lot of the more foundational information that's so fundamental to having a good conversation. And so I remember definitely I've walked away from conversations being like, oh, without Darnell, I wouldn't have had anything on that episode. And that's just because you bring sort of, some stuff that I didn't even know you were going to bring. And I'm like, oh, I can jump all over that. And all of a sudden I'm like, man, I felt like it's like brown privilege is the great example of that, where you're bringing these pieces of information and these nuggets, and, without you, I wouldn't have had an episode. Like I couldn't have done that episode on my own. Right. So, not that the audience wants to hear us just, shoot praise at each other, but the point here, I think, is, we're both trying to continue to improve, trying to grow. I think,
and learn from each other.
Yeah. And communication is such a fundamental skill. And I think for me in my, let's call it professional career, just doing this, improves my skills for professional / personal reasons, whether it's going to be even communicating with my kids in the future, right? Understanding, being concise and clear and intentional with your words is so important. In terms of other feedback,
sound quality. Yeah, we got hit hard with that. That's like our biggest criticism.
So I think we'll definitely be reaching out to the audience on that. Is it, was that partly because of some of the, let's say the Star Wars episode, it was weird. Some of and I don't know.
Well, what does it say? It says there was one that said sound quality, volume, inconsistency.
Yeah, that one I thought was a little peculiar. I mean, I don't, maybe I'm
volume, editing, and recording. I find it is often very quiet, and the volume needs to be cranked.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't, why the reason why I found some of those peculiar, obviously I listen to, and we both listen to the episodes a couple times before they come out. I'm wondering if, because I listen on when I'm listening to do the show notes page, I'm listening at 2.5, 3 times speed. And so I wonder if maybe I'm just missing some of the audio stuff that we should jump on too.
Yeah.
So, definitely that's something that we're trying to address. We're always trying to improve.
We're going to fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I promise you guys, we will fix it.
So yeah, that's,
sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, for the audience, I think that's something else we'll probably, solicit more feedback on. Especially if you're an audiophile or you kind of know your stuff in that regard, feel free to point out an episode or give us a note like, oh, hey, this is the conversation I was talking about when I was, or if there was a couple episodes that stuck out to you where you had issue or you thought there was issues with sound quality. Don't be afraid to be like, hey, the sound on this episode sucks. I know that I think we lost an episode once because of an audio recording issue.
Right.
I don't know if Darnell remembers.
Right. Yeah.
Not to it. Stuff happens. So I'll ask the audience for a little bit of grace, but again, don't be afraid to tell us. We want to be better. We want to do a better episode every time. So, any other thoughts for you?
The person said, actually give the benefit of the doubt for once.
Yeah, which I thought I'm assuming is probably towards me, but I don't know. That one's gonna make me think. I definitely always want to be steel manning the opposition. I think, this is. I think if I was speculating, I think there's an aspect where this goes to an issue. I was talking to a friend recently about this. I think so much there's a disagreement or a conversation where one side is arguing about intentions and the opposite side is arguing about, let's say, effectiveness or achieved results. And so some of my criticisms, or I would say most of my critique or analysis, focuses on the unintended consequences as opposed to the intended consequences. And so, again, if I'm, not to say that I'm trying to dismiss this claim, because I think if I'm focusing on the unintended consequences, maybe I haven't given enough due to the actual intended consequences and those intentions actually working. And so, my economist mind says we need to weigh both the marginal benefit and marginal cost. And I would argue, for the most part, most of our political or policy decisions completely ignore unintended consequences. And so maybe I'm over-focusing on those things. And so, there's probably a need for me to be a little more balanced. And that, might just be a little bit of my sort of intention to counter the public narrative. And so I'm probably not steel manning the argument as well as I could be. And so just recognizing that, I think, is something that I can definitely improve on.
Okay. And there was a criticism, I think this is towards me. Stop with the spoke versus woke. It's a poor argument.
So I would say I'll give you a little more credit than that, because I think you're trying to use spoke versus woke to reference as opposed to make the arguments.
Okay.
But I think it would also demonstrate that maybe what you're trying to communicate isn't necessarily coming through the way you intended.
Well, okay. You know what? Let me just throw that out to the listeners. We'll put on a survey for this episode. Do you guys like the concept of, or the term, team woke versus team spoke? And this was a term I coined in the episode we did with Kirk Wellum on social justice in the gospel statement, and I also used it with the social justice 101 with Tony Costa, if you want to hear how I use those terms. But I'm just curious what the audience thinks. If that's,
I'm guessing
if
it
that's
might have come
something.
up in color of compromise too.
Yeah, and color. Yeah, and color of compromise. So I want to know what the audience thinks. Like if that's like totally a stupid concept and an idea and it's not helpful, then let me know and I won't use it anymore. Done.
Yeah. So we'll definitely well, and I mean, it might be worth putting out a survey to say what do you mean by that too, and see if the audience can get the the ideas right.
Yeah,
because that would also help in understanding whether or not they comprehended what you're trying to get. So,
okay. Now the last question.
Yeah, the very last. I mean, well, we're kind of skipping over the second last question. I'll just touch it briefly. It said we were asking the surveyor, the people we're surveying, are you a casual listener or subscriber? And basically 75% said subscribers. So we appreciate that. For the casual listener, I would say shoot us a message. Tell us what do you need from us, or what do you want to see from us that would cause you to become a subscriber. And if it's nothing, it's just the way that you consume content. Well, then so be it. But yeah, we'd appreciate the feedback. If any of the casual listeners are listening to this episode, tell us why. Tell us why you don't subscribe. So, but I think 75% is a decent number.
Right. Yeah.
And, for the audience, I would say just looking at our, I don't want to say stats, but looking at the website, it tells us basically in terms of our numbers. We have, again, about 120 downloads on average. That said, I mean, some of our episodes, and if you go to our website, sixcentsreport.com, you'll see the download numbers by episode. If you're really
120
interested.
average, and then our subscribers, is that?
Yeah, it's kind of tough because you have to aggregate subscribers across all the different platforms. I think on, Podbean, which is what we use to publish, I think we have somewhere in the 20 plus range, but then there's like, probably 10 subscribers on iTunes, and then Google Podcasts.
No,
and
it's
right, so
no, our followers on the Six Cents Report on Podbean. Well, we're among family and friends, so we can let you guys know. We can be transparent with what we got. So we have 59 followers on Podbean, and then we average 120 downloads. So if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. That would be very helpful for us in helping to gauge our reach. And
and please comment, rate the podcast. All these things definitely help us get more views and audience with regards to iTunes and different things.
Yes.
So share, like, subscribe, comment, all these things that you can do as a listener, we appreciate. It definitely helps us grow our audience.
Yes.
But yeah, what I was going to say is, we have a couple episodes that don't quite hit, let's say, the 100 mark. And then we have some, like the first time we had Sam Say, I think that one hit like 350 downloads.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's something that we're obviously trying to continue to grow our audience. And so, yeah, again, appreciate those who subscribe. Those who don't, feel free to let us know why.
Right.
The very last question, though, I think, it's a bit mostly praise. Just most, people appreciate the amount of effort we put in, the research, and I would definitely say, and thinking. So not to, I would say Darnell probably does a little bit more research, and I do a little bit more thinking. And
talking.
And talking, yeah, probably. My bad. And yeah, but in general, good, great. We appreciate the feedback. The funny part was someone said, actually, I missed it in the, how do we improve the show? Someone said, oh, can I be, more guests? Or no, here it is. Glad to hear everyone's 2 cents. Would like to have mine heard. Just kidding, LOL. But I would say to that listener, inbox us if you really want to be on the show. If you think you have, a unique perspective or expertise in an area, or experience, right? Like if you've had lots of conversations on the given topic, definitely shoot us a message. We can't guarantee we can put you on the show, but it's we're always interested in having conversations, and so even to help us, give us your 2 cents to help us create a better show at the least, I think back to when we had the gun episode, we got a few comments on Facebook regarding, sort of the non-confrontational view from a Christian perspective, or the non-violent view, right? So basically the lay down your life before hurting someone else's perspective. And I only say that to say, we want to know that that's part of our audience. Those are people in our audience that hold that view. And so maybe we didn't represent that well enough on the show. And so, I would say any kind of comment or feedback, whether it be on, a social media post about the podcast, whether it be in your podcast app, providing feedback, I would say, we'll do our best to aggregate those. Sometimes they're a little bit harder to track down because there's so many podcast catchers out there. So,
yeah. And again, we really appreciate you, Six Centers. And look out for the follow-up survey in the show notes. Success makes change.
But you heard me? Does that make sense?